Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the apprentice of the Sith Lord. Sidious killed Darth Plagueis. That is all we know. But what if the Sith Lord did not go quietly like Sidious thought? What if his spirit lived? What if he found a new apprentice in the form of one Uzumaki Naruto? What if he found the perfect apprentice? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard! Chapter 13, Getting Closer. Darth Sage sat in mediation, finding himself slightly surprised that the Force had sided with him these many long years now since his master first started training, and the Sith apprentice felt a sense of pride from Darth Plagueis. Pride in having a loyal, strong, and eager to learn student capable of doing whatever was asked of him. From what the blonde Uzumaki knew of his master's previous student Darth Sidious, the young man that killed the physical body of Plagueis had hungered for power since he was a small boy, and was one of the reasons the dead Sith Lord now spirit had taught him in the first place. It was also the Mune's undoing, as Sidious's lust for power grew faster than Plagueis realized, since the Sith Lord had been looking into using the Force to create the ultimate Force-sensitive apprentice before his death, and didn't realize how Sidious would try to stop Plagueis from succeeding. However, unbeknown to Sidious at the time of slaying his master, Darth Plagueis had already succeeded in creating the child of such unmatched power, and had just finished the process mere moments before his physical form were slain. Had Plagueis not been so focused on the means to create such life, the Sith Lord would have felt the Force warning him of such danger from Sidious, and stopped his own demise from occurring. Whether or not that child became a Jedi or Sith in the future surprising didn't matter to Plagueis when reflecting on these things when talking to his current student. When asked why that was by the spiky blonde-haired boy, the Mune Sith Lord felt that one way or another his creation would be the end of Sidious in a form of revenge befitting the traitorous Darth Sidious. Whether it was Plagueis' own feelings on the matter or the Force itself whispering the Sith's future was unknown. As for Darth Sage, he hoped this Darth Sidious got what was coming to him, and left the tragic story behind Darth Plagueis' death behind. Even the years that followed since that conversation, the boy never brought it up, and continued his scheming with the Mune spirit to take over the world. Within 4 years' time, Darth Sage had quickly acquired the means of obtaining new resources, technology, and political power to keep his enemies at bay. In Snow Country, the tyrant Doto was dead, his niece had become its rightful ruler once more, and the lost hidden technology once more rose from the snow itself almost literally upon the land's thawing. The newly crowned female daimyo Kazuhana Koyuki had been true to her noble position and met the price the Sith was asking in terms of blueprints for the train system and airships. The blueprints for the trains were free, but the airships were not, but the Sith did get a good discount on the price for paying for them, and Darth Sage really didn't care how much was spent to get the plans. The vast wealth in his possession was by no means dented in paying for everything he had done, and over the years had been returned several times over with the moves made in the world. Wave Country was prosperous again thanks to him, the people happy, loyal product consumers to his company, which not that long ago had been their bane, and had grown strong under his nurturing hand. Suna was once again at its peak of power, which was rivaled only by Kumo, and given how they had the 8-tailed Jinchuriki to the 1-tail sealed in Sabaka no Gara, it wasn't surprising. Still, each one had been too far away from the other to start a war, and neither village really wanted to give their own enemies at much closer borders. IWA was harassing Suna over their Jinchuriki being one of the few not taken by Darth Sage, while Suna itself was repelling them with the supplies they were given by their key benefactor. The Sith had provided them with new techniques, jutsus, training methods to better hone their skills, a better understanding of seals from what they already knew, and just about everything else needed to stay at the top. As for Kumo, they were busy with Konoha, and the village's rapid decline in power after what happened in the Chunin exams that Orochimaru crashed years earlier. Still, even without a Jinchuriki to fight for them, the Leaf still had Jiraiya of the Sannin, for now, and then the last Uchiha with his Sharingan now fully developed. For the past 4 years, Kumo had been either trying to get back Yujido from the Sith Lord, or keeping Killer Bee away from Konoha, knowing they were hunting for the Raikage younger brother for their own purpose in controlling the 8-tailed vessel for their own means, along with protecting the man from the Akatsuki. Of course, the Uzumaki of a Sith made sure neither side gained much from their victories over each other, as Killer Bee stayed out of Konoha's hands, and Konoha kept Kumo from winning their fights at the borders of their respected countries. Water Country and Mist were another issue that had been resolved thanks to the influence of Darth Sage, as he had let the rebels in its lands win against the Mizukage, and fellow supporters of his cause. The new Mizukage, a red-headed woman named Terumi Mei, had been grateful for the Sith's secret support in their efforts in the war against Yagura, and used what resources were available to pay off the debts that built up from buying the needed supplies to fight the three-tailed Jinchuriki. Of course, the Sith had worked out a long-term payment plan with her so it wouldn't bring about the end of her time as Kage before it even started, and get the village back on its feet. "Master, the Konan woman is back again to speak with you," said Haku, as she spoke from behind the door to his chambers of his mediation room, and knew it was the one of the few places she dared not enter unless he gave her the order himself. He had warned her along with everyone else in advance that the excess energies of the dark side he let out had the ability to target a person's deepest inner pain no matter how deep down it was buried when in the mediation room. It didn't matter if they were on his side or not, the dark side of the Force did not hold back, and the Sith wasn't about to have Haku or anyone else with him face past nightmares long since buried. Old wounds long since healed could easily be reopened by the dark side and made even worse should the victim succumb to its powerful influence. "Thank you, Haku. I will be there shortly," said Darth Sage, as he wondered if it was irony that his former enemies in the Akatsuki would wish to become allies, and crush the true leader of the organization that was Uchiha Madara. In truth, Madara had many qualities of a Sith in him, but the problem was the founding member of the Uchiha clan wanted to keep power only for himself, and not pass it on to his successor. Striving to be immortal, ruling over this world to be its god, and the fear of dying before even having a chance to succeed was one of the things that would have disqualified Madara if he was Force-sensitive. He would have broken the rule of two the instant his master was slain and thus caused more problems in the process for the Sith. In a way, Madara reminded Plagueis a lot of Sidious in being afraid of such things, and the hunger for power yet not continuing the rules of succession in passing on everything to the student. Now Darth Sage found himself speaking to the woman, who had discovered his base in Whirlpool, and was working with official leader of the Akatsuki known to its members as Pain. The Sith only met with Pain once and even then, it was one of his paths instead of the actual man himself. Of course, to show good faith, Pain had used Yahiko, which was considered to be his most favorite one, as it was the body of his most trusted friend, who died protecting them all when the warlord of Aim Salamander Hanzo and Danzo helped betray them out of fear of their growing reputation in the land. Pain had stated by risking his most favorite of his 6 paths in coming before the Sith, he showed that his intentions for a secret alliance were indeed genuine. Since then, Conan had been Pain's liaison of sorts between the two sides, having met with Darth Sage to discuss plans for the future, and a means to take down Uchiha Madara while knowing the man must never know of their secret alliance. "Conan-san, how is everything with the Akatsuki?" said Darth Sage with a smile on his face. "Hello Sage-san. Officially, the organization is collapsing within itself, and its members are falling one by one with each failure," said Conan, which was true since Pain and the Sith had worked out a way to destroy the members of the Akatsuki while keeping Madara from being none the wiser. The Sith had made himself known first to Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame since they were among the strongest within the organization aside from Madara, Pain, and herself. Kisame, however, had orders to kill Itachi before that happened, as the former swordsman of the Mist had been informed of Itachi being a spy, and thus needed to be removed from play before going after the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The end result was Itachi coming out victorious in battle, but weakened from the conflict since Kisame was told how to counter the Sharingan by Pain using the hidden Mist Jutsu, and yet the Uchiha did not rely on it like many of his slaughtered kinsmen had in the past. Kisame had fallen after Itachi used one of the few Winjutsus in his possession and then Amaterasu to the swordsman that turned him along with his sword to ashes. However, no sooner had that happened did the Uchiha's intended target for the Akatsuki organization to capture, and the least to kill appeared with a smile on his face. "Impressive Uchiha Itachi. Most impressive. I was hoping Kisame would prevail, but sadly that is not the case, and yet this may prove to be more to my liking. I never did like your clan, its bloodline, or the fact your family made my life miserable with the help of the old bastard of a Hokage. I really must thank and curse you for killing your kin all those years ago, Itachi-san. For one, the clan needed to be destroyed given what they planned to do if they succeeded, and curse you for not killing Sasuke in the process because of your love for the prick. He's definitely your father's son. Itachi had winced at that since his intention for Sasuke to survive was to become strong enough to destroy him and then bring about the rebirth of the Uchiha clan with the stupid arrogance of its ancestors. Apparently, the councils along with the Sandaime had decided to put a wrench in things, and thus prevent that rebirth from happening. Don't feel so bad, Itachi. It was a noble goal. Of that, I won't hold against you. It's not in my nature to do that despite the teachings of my master to crush you for that act alone. I know you had planned for your brother to kill you in an act of penance for the killing of your family, but that is not going to happen anytime soon, as I'll be the one to have that honor, and then focus on your little brother myself. Itachi's eyes widened in horror at realizing his full circle plan was about to be ruined by the Sith and tried to flee in order to recover before reporting to Jiraiya. However, his own attempt to flee were ended by Haku and her demonic ice mirrors before she struck with wave after wave of Senbon needles. Darth Sage for his part, had watched with pride at seeing Haku strike Itachi from all fronts with her sais, and being the one to defeat the Uchiha instead of the Sith himself. That's good to hear. I take it the loss of the zombie brothers at Yujido's, Kimimara's, and my hands has no doubt reached the ear of Madara? Said Darth Sage, as he used Yujido and Fu to bait the two Akatsuki members with pain, ordering them to go after them. Yes. He's not pleased. Nor was he after Sasori and Deidara met their ends in Suna, said Conan simply while the Sith smirked. Considering how Suna made them look like jokes and thus insulting the organization he had a hand in making, it's not surprising. All I needed to do was merely warn Suna of their arrival and whom among its people were a threat to their village by letting them in, said Darth Sage, having used his third-person contacts to speak to the Kazekage about the soon-to-be threat. Only Zetsu remains before going after Madara, said Conan, seeing the Sith nodding, but had a frown on his face, and for good reason regarding the plant-like Akatsuki member. An elusive little worm among your organization. You may have to kill him yourself in order for me to make the move against Madara, said Darth Sage, seeing Conan consider this since she knew that he was right. I'll consider discussing it with Pain when I return to speak with him, said Conan before deciding to conclude the meeting with the Uzumaki. Please do. While this is happening, I must handle IWA and Kyumo from getting out of hand since they are starting to get bold again, said Darth Sage while having to weaken both villages to the point where they would reluctantly seek out his help for some form of edge against their neighbors. Though IWA would be the most reluctant and Kyumo would learn to swallow their pride if given enough incentive. Pain can strike out against Kyumo and kidnap the eight-tailed Jinchuriki before bringing him here, said Conan, with the young Sith shaking his head in disagreement. No. The time is not yet right. If Pain does that, then Madara will find out, and we lose control of the situation. Leave Kyumo to me while you handle things on your end with Pain on further removing the Akatsuki from the world, said Darth Sage, seeing Conan nod, knowing the Sith knew exactly what he was doing. I will. Good day, Sage-san, said Conan before bowing and turning to leave. Good day, Conan-san. Tell my distant cousin I wish to see him soon when this is over, said Darth Sage, with the woman stopping and smiling slightly. I will, Sage-san. I know he's happy to hear there is at least more than one Uzumaki left in this world besides himself and Senju Tsunade on her part, said Conan before she left. I still can't believe I have some kind of family left in the world, said Tsunade, as she had come into the room and walked past Conan in the hallway. I agree. Imagine my own surprise in learning there was an Uzumaki within the Akatsuki organization, said Darth Sage with a smile on his face. You're in one of your chipper moods. They're becoming more frequent these days, said Tsunade, seeing the boy was becoming happier over the years and not because his power growing throughout the elemental countries. Because everything is going according to plan. Soon Whirlpool will rise again. Soon the leaf will be a shadow of former self. Soon Jiraiya of the Sannin will be dead, said Darth Sage while ignoring the slightly pained look on his godmother's face. How much longer does he have? Said Tsunade curiously. Not long. I sense the plant in him is ready to rip itself out of his body. He won't know it's happening until it's too late, said Darth Sage calmly while sensing to something close to sorrow in regards to Tsunade's emotions in regards to Jiraiya's soon-to-be demise. What symptoms will he be showing? Or will it just happen? Said Tsunade, seeing the Sith pause in thought. Some minor coughing. His joints will feel stiff. Like he has extra feeling in his body that feels off and can't be explained, said Darth Sage calmly while Tsunade nodded. And then the inevitable comes? Said Tsunade with the Sith nodding. Yes. It will be painful. It may even be considered cruel on my part. But it is no less than what he deserves for going against my father, mother, and every Uzumaki that was slain here in Whirlpool, said Darth Sage before continuing his walk to the outside world of his slowly restored homeland of his mother. It had taken a great deal of resources and manpower over the last 4 years, but the place was starting to show signs of the greatness his people once had, and the blonde had every intention of making it become just that. He even had what could be called new blood coming into Whirlpool, with missing mean of his choosing from the bingo book being offered a place to become something born anew. All Darth Sage asked of them was their undying loyalty, and the sanctuary they desired from being constantly hunted would be granted by him. While still small in numbers, the Sith knew that would change with more time, and how the numbers of the human race could easily double in number over such a short time when pulled together. I know. Still, the memories I have make me feel some form of sorrow and pain in my heart, said Tsunade, seeing the Sith nod. That is to be expected given how long you've known him, but remember it was because of him that Whirlpool fell so easily, and it was through him that you were lied to about me being dead. He denied you a chance to be a surrogate mother, said Darth Sage, as he was not going to let these feelings of sorrow to grow into a means of eroding her will and questioning her own resolve. I haven't forgotten. Just how I haven't forgotten you being the ladies' man with several of the kunoichi here in Whirlpool, said Tsunade with a smirk while changing direction of the conversation. I didn't expect that to happen, to be honest with you, but things just happened. Said Darth Sage, as he didn't expect to fall for any of his female subordinates, or marry them based on clan laws of having multiple wives when its numbers were dangerously low. Well, they did. Hinata is progressing nicely with her pregnancy, by the way. Practically glowing with joy at being the mother of your child. Same with Yujido too, said Tsunade with the smirk on her face growing and her godson now grinning slightly. I hope so. I find myself happy with them. Haku has been trying to get pregnant as well from what I sensed of her intentions. We are intimate, said Darth Sage while ignoring the chuckle from his godmother at his mentioning of Haku and her affection for him. Even though Haku dared not show it to anyone outside of the Sith Lord's special inner circle, which consisted of Tsunade, Shizune, the other Jinchuriki, and the other tools under his command. Haku had been the first of the 3 women in his life to proclaim her love for him, standing before him in the master bedroom of his home, asking if he would grant her the honor of becoming his wife, future mother of his children, before removing her ocean blue robes to reveal her naked form in all its exotic glory. A few months later, Hinata had asked to be his second wife, knowing he could have more than one, but strangely enough had been the first to become pregnant with his child not that long ago, and the same with Yujito when her time came. Much to Haku's annoyance, though it did little in stopping the young woman's personal desire to be carrying the Sith Lord's child like the others currently were. Don't worry about it too much. If anything, she's near that time when conceiving a child after such time together is assured, and Haku is going to do everything in her power to see that she has an Uzumaki bun in her oven. Why? Because that young lady loves Yugaki. They all do. They were once just your subordinates you would order around, but now they've become more, and to be perfectly honest, I am happy to see that it bringing about a lighter side in you, said Tsunade, as she had been concerned at first with this force energy, and the dark side possibly poisoning his body. But after seeing the girls around him interact with her godson, the signs of such a thing became less, and less the more time they spent with Naruto. In fact, she had encouraged it with the others, knowing the more women in Naruto's life, the better off he would be, and keep him level-headed without going completely psycho like too much power tended to do. Even if it did turn out to be something from one of Jiraiya's wet perverted dreams. The concept of love is normally not part of the Sith way, but then again, I'm not one of the more conventional Sith that have been around for 1,000 years prior to myself, and I do not like breaking boundaries, said Darth Sage, having told Tsunade a little bit about the Sith and how long they've been around. How very true, my apprentice. Still, if anyone is going to embrace the concept of a Sith Lord falling in love and succeeding, it would be you, said Darth Plagueis, as he didn't really understand the concept himself, which many Sith tended to follow since love was something that embraced the lighter side of the Force, and while not something a Jedi would embrace either, it was still something Sith tried to avoid. Sure, Sith tended to have lovers, more out of lust really, and the concept of love had been considered a taboo of sorts, just like the Jedi did, only for different reasons. Spoken like a true Uzumaki, said Tsunade while seeing the young Sith looking around his new home like an emperor over his empire. Would you expect anything less from me? Said Darth Sage with a raised eyebrow. Not at all. Not at all, said Tsunade, as she saw her godson becoming a true leader, and knew he would bring peace to the elemental countries. Though certain enemies needed to be removed first, and they weren't going to go down without a fight. Chapter 14 Unity. The time had finally come. The blonde Uzumaki Sith Lord had seen it through the Force at last. The pieces were in place and the fall of the leaf was at hand. Zetsu had been slain from what the blonde felt through the Force, no doubt by Konan, or Pain's own hands. He sensed Madara was no doubt suspicious of the plant man's death, but could do little at the moment, and from what the Sith Lord knew of the Uchiha's plans, the true leader behind the Akatsuki was planning to use the white sets of clones he made. However, Darth Sage found that Madara was not worthy of such an army, and should be put to better use in the hands of someone capable of using them properly. So, with that in mind, the Sith decided to visit AIM where the Akatsuki HQ was located, and pay a visit to Madara in a surprise move that neither his allies in the organization saw coming. It was for the best, of course, since it would further fool Madara into believing that neither Pain nor Konan had betrayed him, despite the secret truth to the contrary. Hello, Madara. Been a while, hasn't it? Said Darth Sage casually while the spiral-masked man looked at him with surprise coming off of him from what the Sith could feel through the Force. How did you find us? Said Madara, seeing Konan and Pain were truly surprised to see him in AIM. You have your spy network and I have mine. Or rather, you had a spy network, said Darth Sage, seeing the single Uchiha sight behind the mask narrowing at him. So, you've no doubt heard, said Madara before removing his mask to reveal a face that had not aged since he fought the Shodaime Hokage. Indeed. Have I met up to all your expectations since you last saw me in person, Madara? Was everything you feared I would become in the future when you held and covered me in explosive tags? Said Darth Sage with lunar eclipse in hand now. Perhaps. I should have killed you when I had the chance back then, said Madara while cursing his own arrogance in toying with Minato in using the infant Naruto. Perhaps you should have. Then again, you are an Uchiha, and arrogance is practically in your blood. Never did learn humility even after you lost to the Shodaime Hokage, said Darth Sage with amusement in his voice while Madara scowled at him. I didn't lose. I let him win so I could achieve victory in the long run, said Madara while the Sith laughed mockingly at him. And yet you never once took credit for everything you did afterwards. Always having someone doing your dirty work for you. Hell, the last time you even made a move on your own was when my mother was pregnant, and the QB had the chance to break free from her seal, said Darth Sage once more in a mocking fashion. Like you are any better. What you have done to Konoha was done out of spite just like I did, said Madara while the Sith Lord scoffed at him. Please. Do not compare your pathetic reasons to my own. Yes, I did everything up to this point out revenge. I'll admit that without hesitation, but the reason behind my actions are so much more, and run so much deeper than yours ever could, Madara. Yours was out of jealousy for being denied the right to lead the Leaf Village. Mine was being denied the right to have parents, a childhood, an overall happy life while being a loyal Konoha shinobi just like my parents were. You were only betrayed by the Uchiha clan when they wanted peace with the Senju. I was betrayed by everyone. By the Sandaime Hokage, my so-called godfather, and the people of Konoha as a whole. Said Darth Sage coldly while the dark side swirled around him at this point. Yes. So, I've heard, said Madara while drawing his sword and putting chakra into it. It seems Itachi told you quite a bit when we fought sword to sword.
Shame he's not here to see this, said Darth Sage while Madara growled slightly.
Indeed. However, I must admit you did me a favor in killing my pacifist kinsman, and his foolish ideals that peace would be achieved through this organization, said Madara while the Sith smirked behind his hooded form. Ah yes. Your infamous moon plan to possess the body of the Jubi and put the entire world in an illusionary state with you being its new god, said Darth Sage while the Uchiha was surprised for a second. So, it's true. You can read minds, said Madara having heard the whispered rumors. And the thoughts projected from it. They were being broadcasted in your head at the time. It was so easy to read what was going on in there, said Darth Sage while seeing the Uchiha was getting angrier by the second. Enough. The time for our talk is over, said Madara with the Uzumaki becoming serious too. Oh, I agree. The time for talk is indeed over. Leave us, said Darth Sage with Pain and Conan nodding before leaving the two in the room. So, they did betray me, said Madara in a whisper before he clashed with the Sith Lord in combat by sword. Surprised? You shouldn't be. Considering one of them is a long-lost family member of mine, said Darth Sage with a smirk while Madara growled. Another Uzumaki. Like your mother. The Uzumaki clan has been the bane on my life since they first helped the Senju clan seal my pet away. I was actually thrilled to hear of their destruction and at the hands of the Leaf no less, said Madara with the two clashing violently in the art of swordsmanship. So, you knew that dirty little secret too. Why am I not surprised, said Darth Sage while figuring the Uchiha would know the truth. Please. You think I'd just reveal myself and blurt it out? I could have released that little bit of information to the world at any time. I was tempted. Oh, I was so tempted, but the plan I had set in motion was still evolving, and by that point during the Shinobi War there was the risk Kushina would leave the Leaf with Minato right behind her. Never to be seen again. He loved her before they even admitted it to each other. If anything, the news would have brought them together, and thus made things more complicated for me. I wasn't ready and the time was not yet right to strike when so many Leaf shinobi were battle-hardened from the war. Your father was nearly at the peak of his power that had the ability to destroy me and upon learning the truth would have decimated Konoha's own forces that were responsible for it and thus removed the tainted element within the village itself. I on the other hand wanted that element to fester within the Leaf, to grow like a plant, or rather a weed within the garden of purity my rival created when founding Konoha. A poisonous weed that fed on the noble, the loyal, the righteous, and the purity of the village itself before it took over completely with too few in the village to oppose my dark plant, said Madara seeing the Sith Lord once more try again to slash him to pieces, but a quick fading out of space, and time before reappearing behind the young Uzumaki. That's a neat trick you have, Madara. Let me show you one of mine. It's in honor of my late father and the nickname IWA gave him in the last war, said Darth Sage, as he used Force Flash to create bright light rimmed with shadowy darkness that blinded Uchiha Madara, and caused the man to stumble back with pain burning in his optic nerves. A force power used by Jedi, the Sith Lord found himself able to use it through time, and training in using the joy he had with his loved ones while still being a Sith capable of using the dark side. Granted, Plagueis wasn't too happy about his apprentice using a Jedi-based force power, but Darth Sage had told his master that the only way a Sith can grow stronger is to do things his predecessors could not, and this was one of them. My eyes. How did you do that? Said Madara, as he had his Sharingan on at its most heightened level, and the light had severely damaged his brother's eyes. Through training. Like you should have done after losing to the Shodame Hokage at the Valley of the End instead of relying on those pathetic eyes of yours, Uchiha, said Darth Sage, as he used the force to wrap its power around Madara, and keep him in place so those eyes of his couldn't free the Uchiha. Not that the Sith Lord thought they had that kind of power. Release me. Release me, you worm. I won't be cheated out of what should be mine, said Uchiha Madara, as he saw the hazy image of the Sith Lord holding out his left hand, and suspending him in midair. The use of his eyes in freeing him was not possible due to the damage they suffered from the bright flash of light and was certain there was blood trickling out of them since he felt something of liquid form doing just that.
and Madara knew they were not tears.
Let me tell you something about the Sith that was passed down from master to apprentice for 1,000 years since the time of Darth Bane. The Sith Lord who first spoke these very words to his apprentice. A Sith knows when to unleash the fury of the dark side, and when to hold back. Patience can be a weapon if you know how to use it, and your anger can fuel the dark side if you learn how to control it. I have held back against you and my other enemies since I first started because I knew if my fury was unleashed too soon, this world would never recover from it, and my final victory over all my enemies would be a hollow one, said Darth Sage, narrowing his eyes at Madara while arching his sword and channeling a large amount of dark side energy into it to the point where its dark aura was seeable with Sith lightning running all around it.
You won't win, boy. There are too many enemies in this world to handle. Even for you, said Uchiha Madara while seeing the sword radiating dark energy. Which is why I wish to thank you for the large army of white Setsu clones being used to crush them before I end your life.
So, from one dark villain to another, thanks, said Darth Sage before bringing his sword down in a vertical slice that split the Uchiha into two pieces, before both halves disintegrated mere seconds later. With his enemy slain, Darth Sage sheathed his weapon before walking out of the room with Pain, and Conan in the hallway not looking the least bit surprised it was the Sith Lord coming out of it victorious. Smiling at them, he saw the two smiling back, and the three of them headed towards the statue holding the demonic energy of the two Biju the Akatsuki successfully captured. Since then, the statue had been making an army of the white Setsu clones since that happened. We have enough of an army to attack and completely destroy one shinobi village in its entirety, said Conan, seeing the Sith Lord study the statue and the production of white Setsu clones for a second before turning to face them. That's good to hear. But I have better idea, said Darth Sage with a smile on his face that all Uzumakis get when they think of something devious. What? Said Pain, though he had an idea of what his kinsman wanted to do. We attack 3 villages at once, said Darth Sage with his smile never leaving.
What? Said Conan while Pain seemed intrigued by the idea.
Which ones? Said Pain, knowing Suna and Mist were out of the question for obvious reasons. Iwa, Kumo, and the Leaf are to fall at the hands of these 3 armies. We weaken to the point where they never recover from the attack. They will be forever crippled by such an attack.
Pain will strike Kumo.
Conan, you will strike Iwa, and I will strike the Leaf, said Darth Sage, seeing the two looking surprised at his move to personally attack Konoha.
Is that wise?
The Fire Daimyo won't like you destroying his hidden village, said Conan with the Sith shrugging. In the past 4 years, I've made it my purpose to have each daimyos from each country under my thumb, and make the people see their feudal lords seem too incompetent to do anything correctly. With each village weakened or obliterated, fear will spread through the people, asking for help from someone with the strength to bring things under control, and it will be me that the people will call for. Who better than the son of the Yondaime himself? I have brought peace, happiness, prosperity, and unity to most of the elemental countries under my shadowed rule. When I make final move, the people will embrace me, the people will love me, and the people will do whatever it takes to keep me that way, said Darth Sage, letting out a chuckle while Conan had to admit such a means to protect his flank was indeed impressive.
He's moving to become the first emperor of the elemental countries, thought both Pain and Conan at the same time.
Konoha, being the weakest of the 3, will require me having the least number of clones since I'll be supported by other subordinates and they are more than a match for the Leaf Village, said Darth Sage with both of his allies agreeing. Kumo had the 8-tailed Jinchuriki, which means things could get difficult, even for me since the Raikage is rumored to be even stronger, and could cause problems. Perhaps Conan should assist me with her army and then we take down Iwa last, said Pain with the Sith considering this option.
Good point.
Besides, he was more than occupied with Suna at the moment, and currently keeping them distracted while we're about to crush 2 villages at the same time. Just be sure not to harm my fellow Jinchuriki too much while there, said Darth Sage, knowing this was going to be cutting things a tad close with Kumo.
Konoha.
If there was ever a time when Sarutobi Asuma could be more shocked while being the Hokage of Konoha, this was that time, as the shinobi on guard detail had reported a massive army headed this way made of pale white creatures, and they looked like they were ready for a fight. An army of hundreds if not over 1,000 of these things were marching towards Konoha's walls, intent on destroying its people, and all they held dear in their hearts.
And they were being led by Naruto and several his subordinates.
Not for the 100th time did Asuma curse his father's stupidity in taking the road he did with Naruto and having the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's hatred for the leaf from learning the truth about things come back to bite the village in the ass.
Shark teeth and all.
Asuma had learned the horrible truth of his father's acts through the man's personal journal, which was kept in his room at home, and read the dead former Hokage's dirty secrets that he had taken some joy in doing if the writing was any indication. The destruction of Whirlpool in order to have the only Uzumaki in existence so Kyuubi would forever be in the leaf's control had made Asuma want to vomit. Even worse was the third Hokage's belief that upon Naruto failing to meet his expectations in being the perfect weapon, he'd have the boy find a girl to sire a child, and the offspring would become the new Kyuubi Jinchuriki after provoking the seal to loosen. The mother of course would be killed in order to keep the new Jinchuriki under the village's care and the process would start all over again. It was sickening, and now that natural line of thinking Asuma's father went down in terms of a path had forced them to face the very devil they had created and could not put down. Konoha went into an instant lockdown, civilians were being sent away to the shelters, and shinobi were getting ready to defend the village from the invading army. The large doors were shut immediately and the sound of the marching army got close with each passing second.
"Look what you've done, father. Look at the wrath you brought down on the leaf, all for the sake of power and your wounded pride,"
thought Asuma, as he knew it was time to face the music, and went to help in the defense of Konoha. For what would most likely be his last time as Hokage. For Darth Sage, he had found the closed doors to his birthplace to be insulting, but not truly unexpected considering what happened years ago, and the fire daimyo letting the Kyuubi Jinchuriki get away with everything. Add to the fact the Sith Lord constantly liked to rub it in their faces with his survival, living well, and everyone he grabbed from the Chunin exams from the leaf doing the same.
"Time to knock, hard,"
said Darth Sage, as he reached out with the force, and pushed the massive doors forward while the shinobi on the other side of it were trying to keep them closed.
Not that it mattered.
Arching his right hand back, the Sith Lord gathered the force into it in a ball-like form before releasing it forward at the door with explosive results. There was now a massive hole where the door once was, the shinobi behind it severely injured, or dead from the massive pieces of wood now embedded in their bodies. With the resistance of his entrance into the village temporarily removed from play, the Sith Lord kept the doors open using the force, and beckoned his army to follow him. The sound of marching resumed, footsteps thundering loudly, as the army of white Zetsu clones spreading out, and began engaging the enemy shinobi trying to oppose them.
In more than one instance, Darth Sage was attacked in the belief that once the leader of the army was gone, so was the morale of the massive army, and thus bringing about a quick victory for Konoha. Sadly, for them, the Sith Lord was not feeling so gracious, and easily removed them with the greatest of ease. "Kimimaro, I sense Madogai is headed our way. Intercept him. Use taijutsu only. I will want a report on the man's skills and if he was indeed worthy of being Rock Lee's first sensei," said Darth Sage before pointing to his right with the albino nod and run off. "What about me?" said Anko curiously.
"Make your way to the center of the village and summon Manda and make sure he does not give you any lip about sacrifices for his services. Remind him that particular rule no longer applies with his summoning contract," said Darth Sage, knowing Manda needed to be reminded from time to time. "Of course, Sage-sama," said Anko before rushing off to do some much-needed damage to the place that scorned her for so long.
"Naruto! Stop where you are," said Kakashi, appearing in front of the Sith Lord with his Sharingan exposed. "Ataki Kakashi, son of the White Fang. My father's last surviving student."
"To think such a title went to someone so undeserving," said Darth Sage, seeing Kakashi narrow his eyes at him. "Be careful what you say about who is undeserving of what, Naruto," said Kakashi while seeing Jiraiya was behind the blonde Sith Lord.
"Why? Can't stand the truth?"
"You were a prodigy back in your day, Kakashi, and being in a war only accelerated it faster. Still, I doubt my father would be pleased with how things turned out, and you being a betrayer to the very principles he taught.
I wonder how your other teammates would react at seeing the scum that stands before me now?"
said Darth Sage while he turned his head and eyes to the right to see Jiraiya, and sure enough the Sannin was looking a bit thinned.
Don't you dare speak of the dead Naruto. You know nothing about them, said Kakashi with anger in his voice.
Oh really? You would be surprised what I learned using my powers. I used this one very special force ability. It's very difficult to do, and very rare in performing. Even my master was surprised at my skill in doing it.
It's called flow walking. I can view the past and the future.
I can walk among a crowd in the past, but never interact with them, and never be able to change the outcome of things. You can't imagine what I found in the past when I did it and the real truth behind Uchiha Obito's death,
said Darth Sage while Kakashi's eyes widened in surprise.
I don't know what you're talking about, said Kakashi while Jiraiya was trying to go through hand signs, but was being interrupted due to his body crying out in pain, and the Sannin knew something was wrong. It had been for some time.
Do you now?
I think you're a liar, Kakashi. You see, I know before that Sharingan granted your life newfound greatness in copying over 1,000 jutsus, trying to learn so much in order to get out of your father's shadow was becoming quite a pain, and to be blunt, it was something you couldn't handle. That is of course until Uchiha Obito died, said Darth Sage seeing Kakashi getting angrier. Shut up, said Kakashi growled at him. Everyone assumed it was that IWA shinobi, who made that giant boulder come down on you, but what neither Obito or Rin knew was their teammate Hatake Kakashi had used the Shadow Clone Jutsu earlier to get into position to make that boulder fall. You were so sure of your friend moving to save your life and Rin's after seeing how he reacted to you abandoning your teammate for the mission. It was a calculated risk on your part since you were betting Obito would not only have at least one of his eyes intact, but Rin being the skilled medic Nin she was, and her transplanting the Sharingan eye into your damaged one. From then on out, you were on easy street, and everyone praised your greatness that came soon after. Being honored for rescuing your teammate, showing the Sharingan eye to the councils, and the Hokage like it was badge of honor, portraying yourself to be a hero while it was Obito who was the hero, whereas your own father was detested for his similar, and much nobler actions. You used Rin's kidnapping to orchestrate Obito's death and gave you a means to get out of your father's own shadow.
TSK.
For shame Kakashi, said Darth Sage mockingly at the Jounin, who looked furiously at him, and saw Jiraiya on his knees behind the Sith Lord almost convulsing violently.
What's happening to him? Thought Kakashi seeing the Sannin was in terrible pain. Don't bother with Jiraiya slowly dying behind me, Kakashi. Let's focus on you and Rin on the day she learned the truth,
said Darth Sage while Kakashi once again became focused on him.
Leave her out of this,
said Kakashi seeing the Sith Lord smirk grow.
I think not.
You expected her to forever adore you like before, but after the way you were acting upon arriving home, Rin had a revelation, and stopped being the girl that always had hearts in her eyes at the mere sight of your face. In the years following, you found yourself wishing to have that girl wrapped around your fingers again, but Rin was already over you, and interested in someone else, said Darth Sage with a wicked grin on his face.
Don't, said Kakashi while the Sith Lord let out a small laugh knowing the name would set the Jounin off in a rage.
His name was Madogai. You used your newly acquired Sharingan eye to hypnotize Rin into drowning herself in a small lake area only the two of you knew about. In the end, Guy thought Rin had left because she still couldn't choose between him and yourself, Kakashi.
Hence how your little rivalry got started.
Ha! The Sandaime was easily able to keep the issue of Rin's disappearance quiet from everyone since knowing the truth would cause a lot of problems and thus ensured your continuing loyalty to him in return for his silence on the matter, said Darth Sage, as he laughed at Kakashi, who didn't like being laughed at, and charged at the Sith Lord with the blonde Uzumaki leaping to his right onto a nearby rooftop.
Damn him. Damn that boy,
thought Kakashi, as he was about to pursue Naruto when the cry of pain from Jiraiya distracted him, and saw the Sannin's body was moving about in an unnatural way.
Ah!
I see the plant inside of his body has finally matured and wants out. I'll admit it took a bit longer than expected, said Darth Sage, as he had expected Jiraiya to die sooner, but it was clear the plant in him would decide when it came out, and that time was now from the looks of things.
Plant? What plant?
said Kakashi while he looked from Jiraiya to Naruto and back again to Jiraiya. Oh, just something I put in him a few years ago after the botched trap he set for me. There was a bounty on my godmother's head, and decided to strike back in my own way.
Just stand there and watch. It's the only thing can do really. Any chance of saving him was long gone years ago when I first put the seed in his neck to become such a marvelous wonder of life and death in a single moment, said Darth Sage with pride in his voice at seeing Jiraiya scream out in pain and see his body be ripped to pieces by the plant-like creature moving about on multiple legs that were its roots with a single flower-shaped eye in full bloom.
What is that abomination? Said Kakashi seeing the plant stained in the blood of Jiraiya and show off its stained appearance. That is the karma plant in full blood from the karma seed I implanted in Jiraiya all those years ago. Very rare thing in this world from what Kyuubi told me, but thanks to Jiraiya's death, I now have a plant capable of making so many more seeds, and a new weapon of killing my foes within my grasp, said Darth Sage before using the force to tell the plant to run off to the dock. His ship to Whirlpool was waiting with a shadow clone to take it there.
No!
Said Kakashi, as he moved to do a fire jutsu, and burn the plant to ensure no one else suffered such a grim death. Only to be stabbed in the back by lunar eclipse. You never did learn to mind your surroundings, Kakashi, said Darth Sage while the one on the roof went poof and revealed to the Jounin that one was a shadow clone of the Sith Lord.
No. Not here. I can't die yet,
thought Kakashi, as he felt the sword get pulled out of his back, and with a quick slice from the Sith Lord had disconnected the man's head from his neck so clean it wasn't even felt by the Jounin until the Uzumaki tapped the back of his head forward. Ataki Kakashi was dead. Give my regards to the Sandaime, Jiraiya, and every other person I've sent into hell for ruining my life, said Darth Sage before continuing on with his mission.
It was going to be a fun day. Anko, snap out of it,
said Kurenai, as she tried to restrain her old friend, but the purple-haired former special Jounin of the Leaf would not hear any pleas of restraint, and moved to put her part of the plan into motion. Sorry Kurei-chan, but if Sage-sama wants Manda summoned here to raise hell on earth, then Sage-sama gets it, and you will have to understand if I have no real guilt in my heart for doing this. I mean, considering just how much crap I had to take from everyone in the village when growing up. Said Anko, knowing people hated her for Orochimaru, and it was through Naruto that she saw things wouldn't change upon his death. She hated people's fake smiles when the real ugly truth behind them was staring her right in the face.
He's lying to you. I'm your friend, aren't I?
Said Kurenai before seeing Anko frown at and sneer at her.
If you were, then why did you side with these fuckers, and try to bring us back here? If you were my friend, you'd have left me alone, and left Sage-sama alone if not joined him in his cause, said Anko before charging forward and engaging Kurenai in hand-to-hand combat. Something Kurenai was her weakest in, and even more so after only a year to recover, giving birth to Asuma's child with more time spent taking care of the baby than training to keep her strength up. While still a Jounin if only by rank, Kurenai's strength had been decreased to that of mid-Chunin, and while she was decreasing, Anko was increasing her own skills to the point where it was like a Jounin wailing on an academy student. With Anko, stop this. Please. My baby.
I don't want him to die, said Kurenai, as she now lay on the ground battered, bleeding, and basically broken in defeat.
Then why are you fighting me? Fighting for this place? Go get him and run.
Take him to Whirlpool and live there in peace. Sage-sama only wants to punish the extremely guilty parties involved, and while you are somewhat guilty in your own right for defending these assholes, that's not enough to throw you in with the rest of them. Now get the hell out of here before I change my mind, said Anko, having been tempted to do just that, but past friendship with Kurenai did have enough weight to stay her hand, and decided to take a leap of good faith on the matter. Thank you, Anko, said Kurenai, knowing her child was in the care of local nanny hiding out in the shelters. It would be easy to get in despite her injuries. If anything, they would make it easier, and the only tricky part was escaping.
We shall see. Kurenai. Summoning jutsu,
said Anko, as she called forth Manda, and after some verbal talking proceeded to begin causing a great deal of damage in her area of the village.
With Kimimaro. You are strong.
Indeed, worthy of being Rock Lee's first sensei, said Kimimaro, as he had sparred with Rock Lee countless time, but it was clear that despite that, Madogai was indeed one of the greatest taijutsu masters ever, and proved he was indeed skilled in the ways of hand-to-hand combat.
How do you know my student? Where is he?
Said Madogai, as he had been on special missions assigned to retrieve the dubbed Lost Leaf rookies from Darth Sage, but they all ended in failure, and it saddened the Jounin's heart to know he had been denied the chance to train his mini-me clone further.
Safe and strong. Like you would wish him to be, and getting stronger per my master's own wishes. Perhaps, if you continue to prove yourself worthy in this fight, I make a request to Sage-sama that you would be spared death, and join him with the promise of once again training Rock Lee once more, said Kimimaro before the two clashed once again in battle with Guy trying even harder to win the fight. Then I shall indeed prove my worth if only to see Rock Lee one more time after this is over, said Madogai, as they exchanged punches and kicks with shockwaves being emitted in the aftermath of them colliding. With Darth Sage, the Sith Lord saw everything was going according to plan. Anko was damaging the leaf with Manda, Kimimaro was fighting Guy, Kakashi, and Jiraiya were dead. All that really remained was some unfinished business with people in the village. My master, said Karen, as she kneeled behind him, and flanked by a small squad of white Zetsu clones. Go to the Hyuga clan compound. Find Hinata-chan's little sister Hanabi. Hanabi. Bring her to Whirlpool alive and unharmed, Karen. I don't need to tell you how important that order is, do I? Said Darth Sage, knowing Hinata still cared about her sister and it would be in the Sith Lord's own interest if his wife had her sister in Whirlpool since she should help start the Hyuga clan up there with other members of the clan. Yes, my lord. And the other members there? Said Karen, knowing many of them would not survive. Take those of the Branch family. A few main family if possible. Kill the rest and then destroy all copies of the Cagebird seal design save for one so I can make modifications to it at a later time, said Darth Sage, seeing the red-headed girl bow her head. It will be done, my lord, said Karen before leaving the Sith Lord to his own devices. Hello Sasuke, said Darth Sage, turning to an alley where Uchiha Sasuke appeared with Sakura beside him, though she clearly on there to support the Sharingan Eye user in being his backup. And even then, she looked shaky. Hello loser, said Sasuke with his Sharingan eyes activated. Loser? Me? Interesting word to use regarding myself since you're what rank exactly in the leaf? Shunin? Jounin? While I am the chairman of the richest company in the world, I have influence in every country, with every leader, and I brought my mother's homeland back from annihilation. A homeland I have become the ruler, I might add. I also helped kill Itachi, Madara, and remove the Akatsuki organization off for good. What have you done exactly? I've done more than enough to earn my rank, you freak, said Sasuke with Sakura once again backing him up. You're bluffing, Sasuke. So instinctive in the Uchiha, it's practically second nature to you, and the rest of your clan before Itachi killed them all. Of course, D-rank missions don't count in my opinion, and they shouldn't. I know for a fact, you've done a few B-ranked missions, and at least one A-rank. That's it. Nothing S-rank. While not the impressive record I was expecting from the little brother of Uchiha Itachi, but then again, you are the runt of your clan, and runts only go so far in the shinobi world, said Darth Sage casually while Sasuke looked livid. Shut up, said Sasuke, as he got ready to use the Rikiri, and the Sith Lord looked bored. You know I was with Itachi before he went to destroy your clan. I could have sold him out to your family, but considering they were a bunch of assholes that helped in my abuse growing up, there was no better revenge against them I could think of, and all I asked of your brother in return for my silence was to teach me one jutsu out of his entire arsenal, said Darth Sage while Sasuke just kept getting angrier and angrier. You lie, said Sasuke with the Sith Lord just smiling at him. I have no reason. The truth is so much more painful. Did you know Itachi was actually ordered to kill his kin? Ordered Sandaime Hokage and supported in the matter by the very councils that kiss your ass every day? Said Darth Sage while Sasuke's face now had the same red as his eyes. Shut your mouth, said Sasuke while feeling an intense level of rage beyond anything he had ever felt in his life. Or what? You're going to cry? Whimper like you did in front of your brother in fear and beg me not to kill you like you did him? Said Darth Sage while loving the sight of the Uchiha just boiling with rage while the Sith Lord himself was manipulating the Force to attack the inner workings of the Uchiha's head. In a physical sense, of course. Attacking the Uchiha's mentality was too boring and would easily give predictable results to the Sith. I'm going to kill you, said Sasuke, but found his head was feeling an increase in pain, and soon found blood leaking out of his nose followed by his ears with the eyes being the last one to have crimson liquid running down it. All Sakura could do was scream in fright. You don't look well, Sasuke. All that anger and stress going to your head is considered unhealthy. Have you tried acupuncture? I hear does wonders for the body and the mind, said Darth Sage as he manipulated the various veins in Sasuke's head to gather blood in the Uchiha's head, and yet block it in terms of leaving. What did you do to Sasuke-kun? Said Sakura while the Sith Lord flinched at her voice feeling like nails on a chalkboard. Nothing your mind could begin to comprehend behind the complexity of my skills. But if you must know, I'm basically preparing to have Sasuke's head explode, and spray his brains all over the place, said Darth Sage with a smirk before using the Force to attack the Uchiha's heart and make the arrogant prick fall to his knees. Stop it. Stop it now, said Sakura, as she drew a kunai out, and threw it at the Sith Lord in the hopes the Uzumaki would be forced to move while stopping his invisible attack on her crush. Only for the kunai to stop midway, turn around, and launch itself back at Sakura before hitting her right in the forehead. The blade would through her skull, into her brain, and easily killing Sakura with the girl falling onto her back, dead. That's why shinobi wear headbands, Sakura. To protect their foreheads from such an attack, of course, if you had focused more on your shinobi training, rather than trying to get into the Uchiha's pants, you'd know that, and more. Oh well. Not my fault for her own stupidity, said Darth Sage casually before refocusing his attention back onto the fallen form of Uchiha Sasuke currently dying an agonizing death. I am an Uchiha. I am an elite, said Sasuke finally before the Sith Lord sighed at this foolish arrogant whelp and decided to make his head finally explode. Says you Uchiha. Says you, said Darth Sage before walking around the body and was once more marching with white sets of clones he commanded with the Force to follow him. It wasn't long before the siege of Konoha ended and the Dark Lord of the Sith, known to many as Darth Sage, had come out victorious over the Leaf, and placed the banner of the resurrected Whirlpool country onto the very top of the Hokage Tower where the symbol of Konoha once stood. The councils had been slain, their heads mounted on poles for every survivor of the siege to see their government officials they trusted to protect them had fallen at the hands of the Sith Lord and his massive army. Among the prisoners were the remaining rookies with the exception of Sasuke, Sakura, Neji, and Kiba tried to fight the Sith Lord one-on-one. Akamaru, however, was spared Darth Sage's wrath, and that was only because the Sith Lord felt Hinata could use a loyal watchdog help protect their children. The others were captured as well, brought before Darth Sage at the hands of his subordinates, their senseis being the same though some were not looking so hot, and required medical attention. Guy was badly beaten, his body covered in bruises, had broken bones, and according to Kimimaro was indeed worthy of being Rock Lee's sensei. Hence why the Sith Lord had decided to grant the Kagaya's request in letting Madogai join their side and continue his training of Rock Lee in anything the Jounin had yet to teach his long-lost pupil. Kurenai had been located by Anko and brought Karen for medical attention after the redhead had stabilized Guy. The various clans residing in the Leaf had been bound and tied up while their homes were inspected by the Sith Lord's subordinates that helped command his army with him. Even Danzo was unable to escape, as he was killed after being attacked by wave after wave of white Zetsu clones, which forced the old Warhawk to reveal the hidden Sharingan in his head, and the ones grafted to his arm that also possessed the Senju bloodline. The white Zetsu clones had overpowered his root forces and thus the man himself while using the powers of the combined stolen bloodlines. In the end, Danzo had died of chakra exhaustion, and took a chunk of white Zetsu clones with him when he activated a seal on his body to destroy a large area. While all underground, it still shook the village literally to its very foundation,
and made Darth Sage know he had gotten his revenge against the man, knowing Danzo was forever denied his dream of being Hokage upon his death. There was also the matter of deciding the fate of the current Hokage of Konoha, Sarutobi Asuma. Kurenai revealed she was indeed Asuma's wife and begged Naruto for mercy in sparing them harm. While the Sith Lord had no love for the Sarutobi clan for obvious reasons, he was not about to sink to the same level the Sandaime Hokage had, and decided to show them mercy. However, in return for that mercy, Darth Sage informed them that their son Kurenai, held protectively in her arms, would one day become his loyal subordinate, and refusing him would be unwise. The same went for the other members of the Sarutobi clan. Along with the Inuzuka clan, Aburame clan, Yamanaka clan, Akimichi clan, Nara clan, and the broken remnants of the Hyuga clan, brought to the feet of the Sith Lord. With their long march towards the country of Whirlpool, the Sith Lord decided to stay in Konoha for a short while longer, as he had unfinished business with the place despite most of its people killed, and the rest were now his new citizens that would have no choice in accepting his control. Using the remaining white Zetsu clones, the Sith Lord ordered all clan homes be sealed and storage scrolls after connection seals were placed on each clan home one at a time, and then pocketed each scroll once placed in his hands. After that, Darth Sage looked up at the Hokage monument, which was a testament to the greatness of each Hokage of the time, and the village's own arrogance for having them placed there so proudly for just about everyone with moderate eyesight to see each massive head. It was an eyesore. Of course, the Sith Lord held nothing against the first two Hokages, as they would have done the job right in regards to him, of that much Darth Sage could sense, and would be respected as such by him. However, the Sandaime Hokage was another matter, and then the Yondaime Hokage that was his father had basically been naive with the village in the first place. While Namake's Minato was his father, he chose the village over that of his own offspring, and making sure there was someone in the leaf to take the boy out of the village before all the shit in his life went down. Asuma never felt like a Hokage in his book, so the man's face didn't count as one of the Hokage heads on the monument itself. Making a few hundred shadow clones, the Sith Lord did the seemingly impossible, and actually sealed up the first two Hokage heads. Each massive head going into one of the special storage scrolls of his own design and to be relocated somewhere that won't bring about the same kind of arrogance this village seemed to embrace when looking at them every day. As for the others, there are two things I really like about shadow clones. One is they make training go by faster, and two, they make really good bombs. Thought Darth Sage before sending the command for each shadow clone on the three remaining Hokage heads to explode, and explode they did. The Sith Lord soon found himself standing outside the gates of the village that once held strength, beauty, passion, and virtue many would kill to protect from evil. Only now, this very place, which held all those things, no longer held them, and was a shadow of what it once was back during the time of the Shodaime Hokage. It was a decaying beast. A scar upon life itself. A festering wound that needed to be sanitized and removed from the world in order for things to progress instead of remaining stagnant. "New orders, my lord?" said a white Zetsu clone having been summoned forward by the Sith. "Burn the village. Wipe it out. Every single building. Every single place. Burn it down," said Darth Sage coldly while pointing towards the inside of the village from the massive doorway entrance where the doors once stood. "It will be done, my lord," said the white Zetsu clone, as he along with his brothers once more marched into Konoha to use their abilities, and turned what was left of Konoha to ashes around them. And succeeding by becoming the fire itself thanks to the seals placed on them by the Sith Lord to ignite upon reaching a building or place chosen at random. "My lord," said Karui kneeling before Darth Sage now, as he was headed back, and felt him looking down at her with some surprise. "What is it, Karui?" said Darth Sage while wondering why she was here. "Our scouts have just reported in regarding the status of Kyumo," said Karui, knowing he did not send for her, but she felt it was necessary to reach Darth Sage and report the new information to him. And, said Darth Sage while waiting for the info. "Kyumo has fallen, Sage-sama. Killer Bee is on his way to Whirlpool as we speak. Han, Rashi, and Fu are already preparing for his arrival," said Karui, knowing only a Jinchuriki could fight another Jinchuriki should there be any kind of fighting. "What news of Pain and Conan?" said Darth Sage with narrowed eyes. "Dead, my lord," Pain defeated Killer Bee, but was no match for the Raikage shortly after his fight with the eight-tailed Jinchuriki, and Konan was killed protecting him after she took off the head of Kyumo's leader from intense lightning jutsu she took to the heart, said Karui sadly while sensing sorrow coming off of her master. So, I am the last true Uzumaki in existence then, said Darth Sage sadly while he saw Karui take something out of her vest and revealed it was a jar with eyes in them.
The eyes of the Rinnegan. Pain-san's dying wish was for you to have them.
His final words were only an Uzumaki with the powers of a god can have the eyes of one too, said Karui while her master took the jar into his hands, and then opened it to put the pair of eyes in the other before putting it close to his own. And used the force to absorb them and their power into his eyes so they would become a part of his being.
Thank you, Kari. Now come.
We have to prepare for IWA and the unification of every single country under my rule, said Darth Sage feeling the power of the Rinnegan now flowing through his veins with the force showing him so many different things on how to use them.
Yes, my lord.
Soon the world will be yours, said Karui knowing her master's plans were nearly complete.
Yes, it will, Kari-san.
Yes, it will.
Thought Darth Sage knowing only one final foe stood in his way.
Recalling the remaining white Zetsu clones to him, the Sith Lord already began to make preparations for IWA in his head, and how to use what was left of the army to crush the shinobi village into the ground.
Ironic, huh? Chapter 15. The cycle is now complete.
The Dark Lord of the Sith watched from his standing position within the shinobi village, as IWA burned to the ground around him while the Sandaime Tsuchikage had been slain by Darth Sage's very hands, which wasn't hard when targeting the man's back with a mere flick of the force, and taking off his head with a mere flick of his right hand wielding lunar eclipse. The white Zetsu clones along with Samui and Karui being among his commanders coordinating with him in ordering the army to strike key places within the naturally fortified village. Suzumabachi was standing by his side, having provided detailed information on the best routes to IWA without being detected, and where to drop the hammer the hardest. Victory is yours, Sage-sama, said Suzumabachi, as she had been promised her own clan being spared being annihilated, but also of solid position within Whirlpool, studying in symbiotic harmony with the Aburame clan, and be recognized for their contribution in the Sith Lord's victories.
Indeed.
Still, the people of the elemental countries need to be assured of their safety and security after what happened today.
Is the projector system I designed up and running for me to make my grand speech?
Said Darth Sage, as he has used the technology of in the now renamed country of Spring formerly of Snow to create a projection system, and able to broadcast his form into the air for everyone near him to see while also putting his form on every household via their TV. The tech team in Whirlpool has it ready with everyone waiting for your announcement to the world, Sage-sama, said Suzumabachi knowing her master wished to make a grand speech to the world and address the important matters they wished him to talk about.
Excellent news, my dear, said Darth Sage while walking with the woman beside him.
Yes, Sage-sama, said Suzumabachi, though it was clear she was distracted.
Patience, my dear. I haven't forgotten about Kuratsuchi.
I sense she is unharmed and is on her way back with my two subordinates overseeing her escort personally, said Darth Sage calmly while seeing the woman smile at the news.
She was the only friend I had in IWA, said Suzumabachi knowing her clan's disgrace to her former village made interacting with anyone there and receiving a smile was a rare thing. Now she will become your friend in Whirlpool. Soon this world will be one, and upon being one we will go forth and growing like a tree from this new foundation. I will use my power and my abilities to see that happen, said Darth Sage with conviction in his voice.
Thank you, Sage-sama. I promise my new clan won't let you down, said Suzumabachi, as she along with the rest of her clan were going to mix with the Aburame, and the two would become a new clan reborn from the ashes of everything around them.
I know you won't, my dear.
We both know the price that will be paid should that ever happen, said Darth Sage seeing the woman nod obediently since they had this discussion beforehand with the Aburame when he announced to both clans of the merger. Whirlpool country sometime later.
Ready for your speech?
Said Tsunade seeing her godson looking very daimyo-like, even with the Sith robe and hood covering most of his face.
The fighting was over. For now, anyway. The Sith Lord knew he couldn't stay stagnant or else everything he worked for would be destroyed in a heartbeat.
He would push things forward with this world until they reached the stars and beyond, even though he sensed it would be many years before that ever happened.
Darth Plagueis himself was gone. The master had nothing left to teach his student and bid him farewell.
Even if the Mun did have something left to teach, he could no longer sustain himself in the boy any longer, and wished his final apprentice good luck on taking the world beyond what it once knew.
That was of course several months ago. Yeah. And how are you feeling? Considering everything that's happened recently, said Darth Sage, turning to face away from the mirror and face his godmother. Fine. I'll still miss Konoha in some deep dark corner of my mind. Mostly because of my grandfather and granduncle.
Still, I've been in Whirlpool for enough years now to say I've come to like it here, and see it as a second home, said Tsunade, as she had set up the hospital, put Shizun in charge of it, and even opened up her own casino where she could be seen almost daily.
And even then, Tsunade still lost all her money when gambling there. Yes. Shizun sees it like one too. I take it you've seen how Shizun blushes when around Kimimaro? Said Darth Sage, seeing Tsunade smirk. Yeah. Though she has some competition with Mitarashi Enko being his first wife while Inuzuka Hana wishes to be his second, said Tsunade, knowing that the Kagaya clan was going to rise again with the help of those three women. If there is any continuing conflict, I'll see to it that the situation is resolved, and they do not kill each other, said Darth Sage before he let out a sigh, knowing those four were going to make him have gray hairs early. Speaking of situations resolved, I thought you should know Haku came in for medical examination today, and wished me to tell you the wonderful news before giving your speech, said Tsunade, seeing her godson's eyes widen, look her dead in the eyes. She's pregnant, said Darth Sage, knowing it could only have happened the time they were intimate before he left on his campaign against the Leaf. Yep. From the surprise in your voice, I take it you didn't know, but that's to be expected since you have been distracted with other things, and then there is your speech on finally solidifying the elemental countries under your rule, said Tsunade, seeing her godson nod. Speaking of that speech, it's time to give it, and then return to my pregnant wives, said Darth Sage before leaving the room to the balcony where the people of Whirlpool looked up to when the projection system the Sith Lord stepped on had now slowly activated. Yes. Go out there and unite the world, my emperor, said Tsunade, as she saw him look back for a second and smirk at her before focusing on the crowd. People of Whirlpool, people of spring, wind, earth, fire, and every other land of the elemental countries. I stand before you today a man who has done what no other before me has been able to do, and that is to bring about the safety of the people. You, who are the strength in my arms, and the holder of my dreams. For so long, the leaders of your countries have been unable to effectively bring about the safety and security one would expect from one's own ruler. I have seen the corruption, as well as the corruptors, and I have seen the arrogant misuse their power. Seen them take from others, betray those they would call friend, and then manipulate others through their lies in order to stay in power. All the while, you the people have cried out for it to end, and I have heard your cries for someone to save them. To take the throne of power away from the abusers, the liars, the corruptors, and the arrogant that have tried to silence me repeatedly once my intentions were known. What I find amusing when looking back on each of the different enemies being defeated, was how they fell faster at my hands, not because of my skills, or that of my own subordinates, but what they feared would happen through this ripple of events that had been set in motion. You see, they feared change. A change in the balance of power no longer siding with them. The balance of power shifting to the people who had nothing because of them, and would soon gain everything by joining me. Earlier today, I spoke to the different leaders of each country, and they confessed to me how ill-equipped they were in leading the people of their lands. That the time had come for a change. One that would benefit not only the people of Whirlpool, but those of the other countries too, and uniting us all in the sacred bonds of camaraderie like never before witnessed in the history of the world. It was decided that effective immediately, that I would become the first emperor of the elemental countries, and rule over all the people under my watchful eyes. Through me, you will all be loved, cherished, and become stronger than we ever were alone, said Darth Sage, as he heard the crowd cheer with joy, calling out his name, chanting Emperor. Emperor! Loudly, and the people all over the world were doing the same. Long live the elemental country's first Sith Emperor. Epilogue. Darth Sage sat on his imperial throne, his mind in deep meditation, as he recounted the last several decades, and the progress the world had made since being placed in this position of power. Tsunade had passed away several years ago over liver failure. Her age and heavy drinking had finally caught up to the woman. The Sith Lord could have saved Tsunade, but the woman told him not to, as she felt it was her time, and accepted death to be the next great adventure. His children were now all grown up. Each of them strong, ruling over different territories of the Empire, and a strong bond between all of them. The still unannounced heir to his throne would be the one the Sith Lord himself would choose, was the one with the might and right to succeed him. Hinata, Haku, and Yujito were all still beautiful to him, as he proved even after so many years in making love to them. They still stayed fit. Still trained themselves to be excellent shinobi and not slow down after their pregnancies. The space program, which Darth Sage started over a decade ago, was a means to reach beyond this world and into the very stars above. Using the airship blueprints provided by Spring Country, combined with the technological teachings provided by the Sith Lord's late master, the project was already having incredible success, and the first spaceship named the Senju had already made its first circling above the planet. The Emperor of the elemental countries knew by the time his children were his age, the spaceships that would go beyond this system would finally be ready to achieve hyperspace travel, and one day reach the core worlds that Darth Plagueis had told him was the heart of the galaxy. However, there was still one issue that remained unresolved for the Dark Lord of the Sith, and it involved his master's first treacherous student, Darth Sidious. If there was one thing Darth Sage did not tolerate, was betrayal in terms of a master being betrayed by the apprentice or vice versa. Such a bond was a sacred thing, as it was what made the Jedi thrive for so long, and the existence of the Sith to a certain extent for the last 1,000 years under the nose of the Jedi. Personally, Darth Sage had a great deal of respect for the Jedi, as did Plagueis, since the Jedi didn't betray each other, and allowed to have their numbers swell. Sidious hated it. Sidious hated everything, and too much hatred would upset the balance of the galaxy like it would be with too much light. Hence why the Sith were allowed to continue surviving after the Jedi and Sith War, when the Sith were in legions fighting just as many Jedi. Sith would continue to exist so long as Jedi did, because the Force willed it so. But there were times when both sides went against the will of the Force, and right now Darth Sage felt both sides were going against it. The Jedi being too firm in their position of power, not changing with the times, despite the Force wishing it so, and the understanding of attachments that the Jedi frowned upon in the form of a taboo. The Sith Lord snorted in his meditative state, as he wondered if the Jedi failed to realize that they showed emotions every day, yet their Jedi code denounced emotions altogether, and didn't understand they couldn't spell compassion without the word passion mixed into it. As for Sidious, he was going against the will of the Force in going after the child, now a trained Jedi, which Plagueis had finished creating just moments before his physical death, and turned the young warrior into his Sith apprentice. While Darth Sage admitted the dark side needed to exist in the galaxy, it didn't mean the destruction of the entire Jedi Order, with the Sith being the sole one between the two sides surviving the fallout. Calling upon all of his power, Darth Sage silently, secretly, and successfully reached the presence of the Jedi Knight the hiding in plain sight Sith Lord was interested in. A young fearless man named Anakin Skywalker. It was such a defining name in Darth Sage's own mind, as it was one filled with impact, and told anyone who heard it that this man was someone of great intensity. At the moment, the Jedi Knight in question was standing on a ledge between falling into the dark side in order to save his secret wife, and staying the course of being a Jedi, while nightmares of the woman dying haunted his mind. While Darth Sage knew Skywalker was a Jedi, the man was also much like the Sith Lord himself, as he only wanted family, love, and to protect what was rightfully his own. Darth Sage saw how much this Jedi had given during the Clone Wars that Darth Sidious had instigated from the shadows, and all he wanted in return was to have a life. Anakin Skywalker. Can you hear me? Said Darth Sage through the Force to the Jedi now standing in the Jedi Council chambers alone with the sun setting. Who is there? Who are you? Show yourself. Sat Anakin Skywalker with his right hand going to his lightsaber at the hip. Calm yourself, young Jedi. I am not your enemy. I only wish to chat, said Darth Sage while sensing Skywalker was not in the mood to chat. What do you want? Said Anakin while keeping his voice down. To help you. I know what it is that's troubling you. I've seen it. I know what that old man told you earlier. He's right. He is a Sith Lord. A very powerful one, I might add. However, there is something about him you should know, and know it before you run off to see the truth of what will happen between the two sides about to clash, said Darth Sage while sensing Anakin tensing further with knots building inside his stomach. What exactly? Said Anakin while sensing the mysterious figure smiling at him. The man is a liar. He will betray you. The power he mentioned to save people from dying using the dark side of the Force? It does exist. Does he know how to use this power? No. Darth Plagueis did teach him, but the old man could not use it, and never understood how before killing his master in his sleep, said Darth Sage while sensing Anakin's shock at this news. How do you know that? Said Anakin feeling his heart racing. Plagueis found a way to temporarily cheat death after his apprentice killed him and took possession of my body on a planet with no space travel capabilities. He saw I was strong in the Force and trained me in everything he knew. Including the power you seek to learn to save your wife from the death that haunts your dreams, said Darth Sage while feeling the Jedi throwing up mental shields around that part of his mind. Stop it. Said Anakin while hearing the Uzumaki laughing slightly in amusement. Calm yourself, Jedi. I have no interest in exposing your secret. In fact, I wish you and your wife the best of luck. However, to have that, you will need to know how to use the power to save someone from death, and to do that requires midi-chlorian manipulation of the highest level. I will teach you how to do that, and it won't require going over to the dark side either. Just pure Force energy. Not light or dark. Just the Force as it is, said Darth Sage knowing the dark side did allow it, but why destroy the Jedi who would kill Sidious, and give Plagueis the revenge he rightfully deserved? I can do that. What do you want in return? Said Anakin knowing nothing was free in this world. Simple. You are going over to the Chancellor's office to see the outcome of the Jedi they're fighting the old man you once called friend and now revealed Sith Lord. When the time comes, you will make a choice, and the choice will echo throughout the galaxy for over centuries to come. I want you to kill the Sith Lord yourself. He will ask you to become his apprentice and become a Sith like him. He will never give you what your heart desires, young Jedi. He covets power. Shares with no one. He perverts the rule of two the Sith have followed for the last 1,000 years and will continue to do so long after your apprenticeship to him ends, said Darth Sage sensing the suspicions the Jedi had about him. Why should I trust you any more than I would trust him? Said Anakin while sensing the man's smile grow. Because I'm not a threat to you. Nor shall I ever be. You see, we are a lot alike. The two of us have had very little growing up. Fighting for everything we had in our own way. All we wanted was love, a family, and not be bound rules that would deny us these things. I know you don't trust me because I am Sith Lord. Denying it at this point would be foolish on my part. However, this Sith Lord knows what it means to find joy and happiness with being with the one he loves. Just as you do with your wife and your soon-be children, said Darth Sage while sensing surprise coming off of Skywalker when he heard the word children. Children? She's carrying twins? How can you tell? Said Anakin feeling his heart stop. I'm well trained in seeing what is normally overlooked. Something the Jedi seem to have forgotten since the Sith were defeated 1,000 years ago and hid in the shadows to plan the destruction of the Jedi Order. Tell me, young Skywalker, do you fear for the life of your wife and children? Said Darth Sage and felt the Jedi's anger rise to dangerous levels. You know the answer to that question. Said Anakin while trying to keep his emotions masked so the other Jedi in the temple wouldn't feel it. Of course. I know you would move planets and stars for your wife. You would tear this galaxy in two for the twins that grow inside of her if it meant they would be protected from evil. What do you think Darth Sidious will do should he be able to acquire one if not both of your offspring?
He will manipulate them into being his apprentices, causing them pain, suffering, and teaching the cruelty, the dark side, under his watchful gaze as he sees things.
Is that what you want, young Skywalker? To see your children corrupted, tainted, and twisted by the dark side of the Force?
Said Darth Sage, sensing the Jedi focusing on the cold hard truth regarding the Chancellor and how the man used him. Had turned his wife's republic that she loved into a shadow of its former self.
What do you suggest I do? Said Anakin, knowing several Jedi Masters were already confronting the Sith Lord right now. Simple. You kill Darth Sidious yourself, said Darth Sage while Anakin was confused.
But, it's just one Sith Lord against 4 Jedi Masters, said Anakin with Sith talking to him in his head scoffing.
Please.
We're talking about the very same Sith Lord that used the incident on your wife's home planet to become Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. The very same Sith Lord, who clearly created the Separatists under this Count Dooku, and used the corruption in the Republic to further inflame their ranks. Through this, the Clone Wars was started with so many worlds being destroyed, and the people living there are suffering because of it.
Just how many of your own Jedi brothers and sisters have been slain in this war? I can imagine it's quite a lot. Was it in the hundreds? Roughly 1,000 perhaps?
All of the death that this war you've been fighting was orchestrated by this very Sith Lord, who everyone had underestimated, and still do underestimate because they don't understand the powers of the dark side of the Force.
I do.
I am telling you now, the only way to save your wife, and the Republic she loves, is to kill him yourself, and take control until the aftermath of his death can be resolved, said Darth Sage while sensing the man was still coming to grips with this situation.
Are you certain?
Said Anakin Skywalker while sensing the mysterious Sith Lord talking to him was being truthful since they had been having this conversation.
You are the Jedi's prophesied chosen one, are you not? Meaning only, you can bring balance to the Force, and that means slaying Sidious.
He is unbalancing it with this war and conflict.
You must slay to keep the balance.
Only through his death will the prophecy be fulfilled and the lingering threat of your wife dying will be no more. You must trust my words and your feelings on this matter, young Jedi.
You know my words to be true, said Darth Sage, having read the man's mind regarding things told to him years ago about the child of prophecy that was foretold would bring balance to the Force.
He's right. I can't believe I'm think this, but the Sith Lord is right, it's my destiny to bring balance to the Force. That won't happen until the Chancellor has been killed and the dark side of the Force no longer has influence on the galaxy, thought Anakin, as he moved to the doorway to leave the council chambers, and then the Jedi Temple when he suddenly stopped, realizing that even with Sidious gone, this one speaking to him could be a threat in the near future.
Calm your mind, young Jedi.
We both know the Sith will never truly be killed. The Force will only be balanced for time. There will always be at least one Sith in the galaxy. The Force will have one of its followers succumb to the powers of the dark side and thus keep the Jedi on their toes. So long as there are Jedi, there will be Sith, and the two will forever be locked in eternal conflict. Maybe one day, one of my descendants will meet one of yours, or the Jedi as a whole. Only the Force knows. But for now, I am not your enemy, and while not a friend, I would prefer to help a Jedi Knight like yourself than that of a Sith Lord like Sidious, said Darth Sage while Anakin mentally nodded. Anakin soon made his way to the Chancellor's office, seeing Jedi Master Windu pointing the tip of his lightsaber at the unarmed Sith Lord, and silently wondered where the others were. Of course, since they were not in this room, they were most likely killed during the fighting from the lightsaber marks the room had that were not all Master Windu's missed blade strikes. Meaning the Chancellor did have a lightsaber, but clearly lost it in the fight, and was now in this defeated state. You are under arrest, my lord, said Master Windu while telling Anakin with a hand gesture to stay where he was.
You Anakin! I was right. The Jedi are taking over,
said Palpatine while looking at the young Jedi with pleading eyes.
The oppression of the Sith will never return.
You have lost, said Windu while the Sith Lord beneath him looked absolutely furious.
No. No. No.
You will die, said Darth Sidious as he attacked Master Windu with Sith lightning, which the Jedi blocked with his lightsaber in a defensive position.
Unreal. Is this what the other Sith Lord was talking about? Thought Anakin, as the Sith lightning Sidious was unleashing was far worse than what Dooku did years ago, and was far more sinister. He's a traitor, said Sidious while trying to overpower Windu with his Force lightning. He is the traitor, said Master Windu while using his own strength to redirect the Sith lightning back at his Sith Lord. I have the power to save the one you love. You must choose, said Sidious while being hit by his own power. Don't listen to him, Anakin, said Master Windu while having no idea what Sidious was referring to, but knew that if Skywalker decided to interfere now, it would be the end of them both, and the dark side would prevail. Don't let him kill me, said Sidious, as his face began to show signs of being disfigured and scarred by his own power used against him. Is that the price of the dark side? To be turned into that? Thought Anakin while he was watching this unfold before him. I can't hold out any longer. I'm took weak. Help me, Anakin. Help me, said Sidious, as he was overpowered by the Jedi Master in front of him, and once again faced the pointy tip of the man's purple lightsaber blade. I'm going to end this, said Master Windu, as he just needed to slay the Sith Lord, and the Republic would be spared any further darkness. You can't. He must stand trial, said Anakin, who found the words leaving his mouth before thinking things through, and wondered what was happening. He has control of the Senate and the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive, said Master Windu while looking back and forth between the two in his line of sight while Darth Sidious was doing the same. I'm too weak. Don't kill me, Jedi Master. Please, said Sidious while trying to appear as weak as possible. It's not the Jedi way. He must live, said Anakin while feeling his mind becoming cloudy and the desperation to save Padme once more entered his mind. Please don't, said Sidious, as Windu readied his blade, and realized the Jedi Master was going to go through with it. I need him, said Anakin while once more desperately. No, said Sidious with the Jedi Master's arm raised to strike. And yelled Anakin at last, as he moved quickly and decisively in striking Master Windu with his own lightsaber at an angle that sliced off the man's arm. All Master Windu could do was scream. Power. You unlimited power, yelled Sidious, as he unleashed his power in the form of Sith lightning on the Jedi Master, and sent him flying out of the broken window of the room. By the Force. What have I done? Said Anakin, as he wanted to stumble back in shock, but for some reason it felt wrong to do it, and once more his vision cleared. You are fulfilling destiny, Anakin. Become my apprentice. Learn to use the dark side of the Force, said Darth Sidious, as he now stood only a few feet away from the young man, and saw him struggling with the temptation, the power of the dark side. Will the dark side grant my desire to save Padme? Said Anakin while deciding to test the truth behind the mysterious Sith he spoke to recently to see if the one in front of him was indeed lying. Yes. Darth Plagueis taught me everything he knew. Together we will save your wife from the visions of death that haunt you, and we will bring peace to the Republic by destroying the remaining separatist leaders. They are weak and spineless without the support of Count Dooku or General Grievous, said Sidious in a semi-soothing voice while playing on Anakin's desire to remove them from the galaxy to further secure the woman's continued survival. For a moment, Anakin didn't speak to him, as he digested the Sith Lord's words, and the ones from he spoke to about Sidious. The man in front of Skywalker had been good to him, encouraged his talents, skills, and power in a way the Jedi never did. Then again, it was no doubt done to cause friction between himself and the Jedi Order, so loyalty to them would be put into question. Add to the fact Padme suffered from this war, and even beforehand when he was still a boy. The Sith that killed Qui-Gon Jinn was Sidious's first apprentice for Force sake. The man, who believed in him first, believed in his abilities when the Jedi Council didn't want him to be trained in the first place, had been killed by this Sith Lord's first student. No, said Anakin at last, which made Sidious frown, and the Jedi once more felt the dark side of the Force surround him in this room. Don't you want to save your wife, Anakin?
Only through me can use the Force and the dark side to protect her from dying. Not to mention your own child she is carrying will die with her in the process, said Darth Sidious, seeing Anakin narrow his eyes at him.
What do you think Darth Sidious will do should he be able to acquire one if not both of your offspring?
He will manipulate them into being his apprentices, causing them pain, suffering, and teaching the cruelty, the dark side, under his watchful gaze as he sees things.
Is that what you want, young Skywalker? To see your children corrupted, tainted, and twisted by the dark side of the Force?
I will save Padme, but not with your help, and certainly not with the powers of the dark side of the Force, said Anakin with his determination to reject the Sith Lord clear in his voice.
You dare reject my offer? I helped you. I encouraged you when none of the other Jedi would.
It is because of me you have earned the love of the people and their trust when the other Jedi are frowned with suspicion, said Darth Sidious, who was not expecting this turn of events, and wondered how this had gotten out of control.
You only used me, Sidious.
You were never going to help me save Padme from dying. You don't share power with others to help them. You only take and hurt those that do not deserve such cruelty.
I see that now.
You can no longer tempt me, said Anakin, as he saw Sidious's face become filled with rage, and sensed the Sith Lord was going to attack him. Then you will be destroyed and your offspring will taken to become your replacement, said Sidious, as he moved to attack Anakin with the full power of the dark side at his command. But the Jedi Knight was faster, and with the same speed he used to cut off the arm of Jedi Master Windu, so did he cut off both hands of the Sith Lord, now forced to his knees from the pain in front of the Chosen One.
It's funny, really.
I thought I would have to move planets and stars to save the ones I love from death. As it turns out, all I have to do is kill you, and then send a fleet to finish up the Separatists hiding out in the Mustafar system, said Anakin, having used the Sith Lord's moment of pain to dive into his mind to find their location.
This is not over, Jedi. The Sith will rule the galaxy one day, said Sidious while he felt the heat from Anakin's blue lightsaber blade pointing at his chest.
Not today, and certainly not while I draw breath, said Anakin, as he stabbed Sidious in the chest with his lightsaber, and then took the man's head off for good measure. The Dark Lord of the Sith soon exploded in violent tapestry of dark side energy, as there was nothing left to show Palpatine had been destroyed, and Anakin Skywalker felt that was for the best at the moment. He would need to contact Padme to ensure she was in fact alright, followed by Bail Organa, since he was one of the few politicians his wife trusted, and felt needed to be told of the situation before going to the Jedi Temple to give his report on the situation. With Palpatine dead, unrest could swell within the Republic without its central power of leadership, but being a personal representative to the man did have its advantages, and being a hero of the Clone Wars would further influence those in the Senate to accept Jedi control of the Republic for a time until things cooled down. This is Commander Rex, said the voice of the clone trooper that Anakin had wished to speak to after relaying a message for Bail Organa to visit him. Rex, I need you along with the 501st stationed here on Coruscant to get a fleet together, and prepare to attack the Separatist leaders in the Mustafar system.
We're going to take them out once and for all.
I have the access codes needed in order to get through their defense network that surrounds the planet. Once you have the ships needed, contact me at their location, and I'll join you for the final battle, said Anakin while sensing the clone commander's shock.
Yes, sir. Understood, sir. Do I want to know how you got that information, sir? Said Rex. No, Rex. You don't. Just get the men ready and the fleet underway. We have a war to win, said Anakin while sensing the clone commander's duty kicking in.
Yes, sir. Right away, said Rex, knowing he had more than enough of his brothers to make a sizable fleet on the planet at this point and were more than loyal to General Skywalker.
We will have peace. At last, said Anakin before Bail came in and asked what happened in this room.
And Anakin told him everything he needed to know while leaving out a few minor details on some things before heading off to see his wife one more time, and by that point there would be a fleet ready to launch against the Separatist leader's final stronghold. Balance to the Force and peace to the galaxy had finally come, at last. The cycle was now complete.
The end. That's it for this reading.
Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.